Hello again. It is day 7, June 18, and it's a late one tonight. It's about 11:15. So, coming in close tonight to the same day. Although these aren't going out live, so it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to keep honest. This is the choice that I'm making. This is when it gets late at night, I start to think. The mind kind of starts going. I've gone to a number of different places. And one thing that I keep coming back to is this idea of choice. The idea of the choice and the choices that we're making. And I guess I'm thinking about this because I'm rounding, it's like the end game. This is the last weekend of school. For the last 18 months, I've been working on my MBA, and it's like the last weekend there. And yeah, I decided to start doing all of this, putting all of this work together, all the Haizhen work, as all of this is going on, as it's wrapping up. I've been working on it for maybe the last 6 months, seriously. And it's a choice that I made. And why? I don't. It felt like the right choice because it was following my strategy and authority. And it kind of comes back to that. It's kind of like, don't you have enough stuff to do? There's enough things going on. Sure, there are a lot of things going on. There's always a lot of things going on. And it's kind of like answering that question of when's the right time to have a child? And really, there's no perfect time to plan things because you never know what's going to happen. Like a month ago, I was here, on a weekend and all of this, and then something unexpected happens, and the last month was supposed to be kind of like easy peasy, kind of like getting into the flow, everybody's kind of around, and it didn't work out that way, and that's okay, because we're here now, and we're right near the end of this. So this is kind of wrapping up the end of 18 months, and also on the cusp of starting something new. And these choices that I continue to make, I'm happy with them, which is the important thing. And I think that a lot of times we it's easy to blame or kind of point to things outside of ourselves to say, oh, that is the reason that I had to do it. That is the reason. So it's like, I could say that, oh, I have to be here. If I could choose, I wouldn't choose it again. And I have to be here because I've come all this way and I've done all this work and I've put all this time in. And that's kind of like putting the choice on a past version of myself to say that guy did something and made a choice. And now me, this guy, is stuck here playing out this choice. But really, it's a choice that I'm making continually, even in this present moment. I'm actively choosing to be here, which makes things a lot easier when you have that choice. Because if you have that choice, then it's your agency. And I think that's really the power of this human design, that the Haizhen method is really about putting choice back in your hands, to understand where you have the choice and to understand clearly the choices that you are making. Of course, there's factors and things like that influence your choice. So it's not a blanket statement. And if you think about most things that you do throughout the day, you might not think consciously that you're making a choice to do them. And at some level, you've made the choice already to do them. So when we have things that go kind of off or go wrong, it's very easy to kind of blame someone else, something else, or some other time, right? It makes me think of habits. It's like, why do I continue to do this pattern that I'm unhappy about? Oh, well, it's because I've always done it this way, which is, again, putting agency into something other than right now. I don't have a choice of doing something different right now because I've just always done this in the past. That past me has always done it. The choice has been made. I need to continue doing it now. And it's not exactly that. I mean, there are elements of that where it's like, oh, because I've done it before, I know I can do it again, which is really positive. It makes me think of that 6 Minute Mile story. Can't remember who the person is, but basically, you know, nobody had ever run a 6 minute mile. But when the first person did it, then more people did it later on. So it's really like when we see what's possible, we understand what's possible. So when you can see that it's possible to make choices for yourself in every moment, in every situation, when you can look at your life as a series of decisions that you're making, then the choice becomes much easier. You have options. You're not kind of at the mercy of unseen forces. And I think that's important. It's definitely changed a lot of how I move and interact in the world. And looking back over the last month or the last 6 months, and even the last 5 years of like, why am I pursuing this? Why am I pursuing creating this thing that I'm doing? The Haizhen method. Haizhen. The Haizhen transformation. It's almost like I have to keep saying it to make it real. Like every time I say it, it becomes a little bit more real rather than just something in my head. And the reason why is because I believe that it can be helpful. I believe that it can change your life. I know that it can change your life. And I think that one of the things that I really struggled with to get to this point, and I'm going to probably one of the first videos that I'll do for like the channel proper rather than these kind of off the cuff, rambly, ranty kind of things, is talking about kind of where I've been and how I've kind of journeyed through to this point. And not what I would do differently, because I couldn't have done much differently. Well, I mean, no regrets, right? But I wouldn't, I think if I knew what I knew now, right, I have new information, then I could have approached the situation and everything like leading up over the last number of years differently. I could have approached and be present for different situations in a different way. So I think that knowing that now, I know that I can enter into similar situations that I may have struggled with in the past with a lot more comfort. And I hope that I can share that with you to give you that insight that will help move you forward and just kind of make things make sense, clarify things for you. One of the struggles that I found in my whole journey was finding something that worked specifically for me, something that was tailor-made. And I think like we sometimes might look at that through like counseling or therapy, and we have like one-on-ones, and all of that stuff is great. And at the same time, there's, depending on who's sitting on the other side of you, there's a layer of like their own stuff. Like they have, people have their own ideas of what works for them. And that's where like, I don't know if it's conventional wisdom or like whatever works for others is usually what they'll teach back to you. And I found that a little bit challenging because, will I say that I'm stubborn and wanting to do things in my own way? Maybe. Maybe it's not stubbornness, but maybe it's more like needing to make it make sense for myself. And if I look at my human design chart with a defined ajna, that means that I have a fixed way of processing and conceptualizing things. So in a way, it's not to be stubborn, but it's to make sense for me. It has to make sense for me. So the struggle that I had was with finding a kind of like a set of tools or different methods that work specifically for me. So there was a lot of like reading about self-help. There was a lot of looking at personality tests. There was a lot of looking at like, I guess you could kind of call it shadow work. I wasn't engaged in shadow work specifically, um, like that Jungian kind of shadow work, but like taking the time to look at myself and do my best to try and like figure out what's going on. And it was a bit of a struggle because there's a lot of information out there, especially like I spend a lot of time on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram if you're not already. Um, and like I see a lot of like inspirational quotes and kind of like motivational type of things, and some of them land and some of them don't. And now knowing what I know about human design and about the different energy types and the different profiles and all the different ways that people can have like manifest their gifts and then also experience their challenges, it makes sense why there's so many different things and sometimes why there's conflicting things. And I think that's just the beauty of the world that we live in. One of my favorite concepts or principles from the Kabbalion, a book on Hermetic philosophy, is the fact that all truths are half truths. All paradoxes can be reconciled. And that really speaks to how two people can have the same experience and a different like outcome, or they are kind of put in the same situation and have a different experience of it. So I think that with this work, what I found is the human design piece is that tailor-made manual. It's that thing that tells you one-on-one, specific to you, what your energy is like, what your vibe is like, what challenges you might be experiencing. And to be able to see that so clearly really is enlightening. It's really like it kind of opens you up to a whole world of like, rather than guessing and checking and trial and error, you have a set strategy to move forward, which of course is like strategy and authority. And then the other piece is then to clearly see the things that are you and the things that are not you, and then to know how to let go of those things. And getting to a point where you're comfortable letting go can feel like a lot of work. And again, like that thing of like how we get to a point of like, this is how I can change my mindset. This is how I can let go of limiting beliefs. This is how I can whatever, like that type of thing, is also, I don't think, really well understood. And I think that's where the hypnosis came in. So I kind of went through this hypnosis first and then into human design. So I did spend a lot of time looking at kind of like the unconscious and understanding how to change my mind and how to reframe things and how to shift context so that I can begin to engage with things that I couldn't engage with before. And I think like knowing what I know now about human design helps me to pinpoint the pieces that I need to look at, to understand like, okay, this is what I'm letting go. Rather than thinking about what I think I want to let go, it's like I can see clearly that this is not me. And of course there's that like understanding, you have to feel it in your body. And that's one of the pieces that I kind of got away from for a long time, which is like to look at the things. I was really deep in like a mental mode of like thinking that I could think through every single problem. And in a way, there's a lot that starts there. And at the same time, your physical body is still your physical body. Like there's no like, it might be kind of like spiritual bypassing tangential, because there's that idea of like, oh, I'm just going to vibrate higher and then everything's going to be okay. But you know that like we are still living in our physical bodies. We need to be able to feel through these things. And that's the final piece of the puzzle. that's come together for me with this Haizhen method, is understanding the physical aspect, our physical existence, and how that ties into the human design and hypnosis. So at a broad level, it's human design gives you the body graph. It gives you the manual, the map. It tells you kind of like the inner workings of your physical body. Hypnosis helps you rewrite the software. And then understanding your body field, which is the sum of all of your senses, especially your mind sense. And maybe I'll finish on this thought of like the mind as a sense. So the body field takes in all of this. And if you look at all of your inputs, all of the five senses, plus your thoughts, and any other things that are not really labeled, kind of like direction, like sense of direction, sense of time, all of these kind of like instinctual types of things that you may not think of as like that are not labeled a specific sense. When you put all of these together and begin to look at, rather than like breaking it down into every little thing, like I'm listening for the words and looking for what I see and smelling and all of this. No, it's like you have a physical quanta of experience, like a packet of experience. And if you take that and use your strategy and authority against it, then you kind of move forward. But what I wanted to finish on was the idea of the mind as a sense. And I think it's hard sometimes to conceptualize the mind as a sense, because if I think of all the other senses, it's almost like with sight, I can close my eyes to shut it off. With smell, I can plug my nose. With ears, I can plug my ears. With feeling, you can numb your sensation. And then with taste, like, just don't eat it. Don't eat anything. But with your mind, it's like, how do you shut it off? And that's often the big question of like, and that's like, I think it stems from an identification with your thoughts as you. When you start to look at your thoughts as like being received, then you can decide to go with them or to just let them pass. Because they're not you and they're not inherent to you, like you don't have to have thoughts to be you, right? Is that right? Like think about that. Think about that between now and the next time that we talk. But the mind as a sense, it's like you can't, like we're not taught instinctively to shut it off. And at the same time, like shutting it off is not really that difficult, which is to say, like, you don't really ever shut off any of your senses. They're always receiving. But in some ways, you just shift your focus, or you shift your intention, or you shift your attention and accept the thoughts that you have. Once you can accept what you have, then you can leave them be. You can leave them be and move on. Move on to something new. I said that was the last thing, but now I'd like the other thing that I was thinking today was like low power mode, because like I feel like the last 3-4 weeks have been really a lot and they're kind of like adding up. And today I felt like I was going into what I call low power mode, which is like when I don't need to, I shut off like the non-essential functions. And sometimes that's just thinking, right? Like with all of the scheduling and all of the different things that I have to manage from right now, it can be a lot to hold it all. And at the same time, holding it all does nothing but drain me. And I would imagine it's similar for you when you're holding on to like heavy thoughts, when you're holding on to like a lot of stress and burnout. If you're just constantly like literally holding on, like physically holding on to it, it takes energy. So it's like you could just set it down. See you tomorrow.